Good morning, Sean Aquiline. It is 8:37, and in the studio with me is Michael Brooks-Hill, who is running for council this time. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Sean.
Let's talk about let's dive right into the first time you decided to run for mayor. We got to go back in time a little bit here. Why did you decide to run for mayor 4 years ago rather than run for council then?
I saw a void. There was two people who'd been mayor previously. I wanted a change. I didn't particularly want to vote for either of them. I was advocating for other people to step up, and eventually I just realized that if I wanted to see a change, I was going to have to be the one to step up.
Okay, so 4 years later, now you're running for council. Why did you decide to put your name for council now opposed to mayor?
There's a number of reasons for that. Some things in my life have changed. Before I was working as a tree planter, and I had more time. Now I run my own business. So I'm not sure that I really could give mayor 100%. And then there's also the fact that I'm much more comfortable voting for Gary Souls. I think he'll be a good mayor. I don't think anyone would stand a chance running against him.
And I was at council meetings for many, many times after David passed, and I always saw you there. Now, you've been almost every council meeting since, as many as you could go to.
I don't know exactly how many I've been to. More than 50 for sure.
And I always watched you taking notes. Did you feel that there was a good chance of getting on council more suitable for the situation?
Certainly initially, that's not really why I was going. It started out just as curiosity, after enough people told me, well, you don't really know what's going on. You don't have enough experience. I was curious what was going on, and I started to go, and it's mildly addictive in a weird way.
I get that. I get it. I completely understand that. If you were to have been elected as mayor, do you see now that it may have been like, oh, all right, well, I'm up on deck?
Yes, definitely a part of me feels like I dodged a bullet there. That's for sure. I still feel that I could have brought a lot to the table, and it would have been a very different council had I been mayor. And I think there would have been some positive aspects for that. Personally, in terms of my personal life, I definitely dodged a bullet.
But now that we're moving forward and you've stepped up as councillor, what some of the qualities, especially after, really going to these things as many as you can in the 4 years, that you think you'll bring to the table?
Certainly, I have a lot more experience. I've a fairly good idea of what goes on at council meetings, as well as a lot of the background information. I don't know if a lot of people know, I've been doing Facebook updates for the council meetings I've been going to, and I strive to be factual, so I will not just go to the council meetings, but dig into the documents to make sure I actually understand what I'm talking about. So I think I have quite a lot of background for someone who still has no actual experience. I think still being an outsider also is an asset to a certain degree, because I don't have those relationships necessarily. I can go in fresh.
Do you mean relationships in terms of family roots, or in terms of other candidates that are running, or just...
As everyone knows...
Are you referring to camps or groups or cliques or...
More the cliques, like the old boys club. Like, I'm definitely not in the old boys club.
Okay, well, it's okay. Just say that. That's cool. You're not part of the old boys club. Hey. Well, that's fine. So you've got an outside perspective. So as we've been moving forward, we've seen lots of the questions and lots of the same answers in terms of, and of course, because it's a hot topic right now, everyone's asking about OCP, DCC, RESP, ECT, and then you get to find out what it means to me. You see what I did there?
Yep.
You're welcome. So do you have anything from a different, unique perspective in terms of those two major topics that you wanted to touch base on, OCP or DCC?
Well, with the DCC debate, something that I would like to see, and I haven't seen talked about really at all, is in terms of residential DCC rates, I think there should be a graduated system. So someone building a 1,500 square foot house is not paying the same as someone building a 5,000 square foot house. Someone who's bought a lot and is trying to build a house that they want to raise a family in, like a 2,000 square foot house. If the DCCs go really high, that's going to affect their ability to do that. Whereas someone who's building a 5,000 square foot house with 8 bathrooms and is just going to vacation rental it, that we should be charging them significantly more. One, it's a different level of service that they're going to be using from the city, and two, they can afford it.
We talk a lot about vacation rentals in terms of how do we manage it, how do we control it, how do we crack down on it, and it's a tricky monster. And it is more expensive than people would actually come to realize. It is quite costly to implement. Now, I know that they are planning on looking at how to infuse this in the future because it is an issue that we need to deal with. Where do you stand in vacation rentals, and what's your take on the whole thing?
That's a big question there. Vacation rentals, I'm a little bit torn on it because, someone owns a house and I sort of feel that they should be allowed to do what they want with their own property. There's that aspect to it. However, having 400 vacation rentals in Revelstoke is definitely depleting the rental housing stock, which is having an adverse effect on the housing situation in town, which has become a crisis now. My solution to this, I believe Vancouver has been doing this, is you just legalize all the vacation rentals. Anyone who wants to do it can come forward, get a business license, and then I think we should be taxing them at a commercial rate. They're running a business. You want to run a business out of your house? Commercial taxes. And then once they come forward, then we can regulate them. Then there's a level playing field for everyone. Then we can look at what's happening in town and say, how are we going to do this?
That's not the worst idea. One issue that stands is if you change the zoning. Now, let's say there's a lovely couple that have done a really nice renovation and they would like to vacation rental a portion of their home, but they still live there, or neighbors or something to that effect. But then after, say, 10, 11 years, they sell their home and they need to leave town. But it's zoned that way and the next person can come in. I don't know how possible it is or if it is even possible, but to have something where it would be, okay, fine, you are approved. The title holders of this property are welcome to have a vacation rental upon a yearly renewal or 2-year renewal after it's been checked. And if you sell the home, it's no longer a vacation rental. The new owners would have to reapply, earn the merits, and so on and so forth to kind of control and manage it. But I have no idea if that's even possible.
When it comes down to it, almost anything's possible.
You're a go-getter.
It might be complicated, but it's just a legal document. There's lawyers who can figure out how to make these things work. Yeah, my idea would be that the difference in taxation would be based or tied with the business license. So if you no longer have the business license, you're no longer paying the higher taxes. So when the house is sold, it's not automatically vacation rental. They'd start from scratch and the next people can decide what they want to do.
All right, got some ideas going forward for vacation rentals. Michael, how do you feel about the mall on the highway? Point blank.
What mall on the highway?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to make any secret about it. I was opposed to the mall on the highway. I think it was a bad idea, and I'm happy that there is no mall out there.
And now that they have the hotel up there, and I believe that there's going to be a secondary one next to it, or potentially a secondary one, what do you think about where that is at, and does it make more sense, in your opinion?
Yes, I think it makes a lot more sense. One thing I'd like to add, that when you're talking about that new hotel that's going to be built, that was just approved at the last council meeting, I believe last Tuesday. Those developers were there. They were just saying, just tell us what to do. We want to build something. Just tell us what to do. Just give us rules to follow that are simple. This back and forth and changing your mind, that's what we need to have, is clear rules. We have our OCP, and that would be one of my biggest problems with that, the way that mall was going forward, was in our OCP, it said quite clearly that that was not what the town wanted. And then somehow the planning department decided that maybe it was okay. If developers have a clear idea that they can buy a piece of land and what the city wants, what the community wants on that type of piece of land, they will buy it and they will build it.
Well, there's some communities that will say, here's the deal. You want that? Fine. But you also have to build this, and you also have to find the land to do that as well. Part and parcel. That way, this one sustains that one. There are places in England that do that. I mean, that's a system that may or may not work here. It's hard to say.
Well, definitely, I think, with that hotel, we shouldn't be allowing these large developments to go forward without forcing them to build staff accommodation. Pure and simple.
Staff accommodation has been a conversation for many moons, and it'll probably continue to be one. If we build it, they will come, but then they won't have anywhere to sleep.
Exactly. That's the problem right now. We have a housing crisis in Revelstoke, and part of the reason is that we're allowing these large developments to build things. And, the Ramada up there is apparently not running at full capacity because they can't find staff because they can't house staff.
Well, I believe there's 200 job postings on the job board at Work BC, which that's a large number of jobs for such a small community. Realistically, 200 out of 7,500 people, that's a lot of jobs. But you can't fill them if you can't sleep anywhere.
Exactly. So that would be one aspect of what I think the city needs to do to address the housing crisis. Big developments have to build staff accommodation or market rent housing or pay into a fund for the city to build.
Where did you stand on the DCCs?
Which incarnation of it? The final one?
Let's give you the chance to talk about it in general and go from there.
Well, I think there was positive things in the DCC bylaw that went forward. I already talked about how I think there should have been a graduated system for residential.
Right.
There were things in there. So if you're building market rent housing, if you're building affordable housing like the Revelstoke Community Housing Society, they would not be paying DCCs for those projects, some secondary suites. This is the kind of thing that should be there. So there was a lot of positive aspects to it. The commercial and industrial rates would have put Revelstoke up in the upper tier in the province, and I think that probably was not a good idea. There was a few details-based things that I think could have been improved. The major problem, I think, with the DCCs is the way it was done. Much like the shopping mall, it was just they tried to ram it through quickly without public consultation. Maybe that's the way things were done 20 years ago, but nowadays people in Revelstoke expect public consultation on major projects.
Well, one of the more controversial last hiccup moments was the Tuesday where it was put back onto the docket and then it was removed. Were you there for that meeting?
I was.
And were you shocked, surprised, or not at all?
I was maybe mildly surprised. A last minute change like that's unusual.
Now, Mark did say in the previous mayor report that doesn't approve it in its entirety, just moves it to the next phase, and there would still be an open dialogue about it. Now it's done, and it will have to wait until the new mayor and the new council are in, and it's going to have to be looked at all over again. And it might end up in the same spot. It might not. It all depends on how everyone views everything. So moving forward, how do you think that it will? I know your theory on it. How do you think it's going to move forward?
Well, part of the problem was, they put out that rough draft with the astronomical numbers, like 35,000 for residentials, and that was a huge mistake. So I think city council and staff have to really look at it and start with a more finished proposal, something that we think is actually reasonable and that people are willing to accept, and have a public hearing, go out, get the feedback on it. And, there's going to be pushback from developers and the various people who make their living through this. And that's fair enough. They're trying to make a living and they're trying to advocate for their livelihoods. That's very fair. But at the end of the day, those rates have to go up. For this community to be sustainable in the long term, we need to get more money from the development that's happening.
To be fair, when you're selling your home, you usually throw it out for a lot more than what you're going to get because you never know.
Well, there is that, but if your house is worth $500,000 and you start at $1 million, you're not doing yourself any favors.
No. So, Michael, is there anything that you had really wanted to touch base on that you didn't get asked by me or any of the other media outlets that you really wanted to say on your own behalf?
Not particularly. You've been asking some good questions for sure.
Thank you.
And I've been trying to answer them honestly. I think
that's what people want. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone is going to be perfect, and I don't think everyone has the right answers. And I'm going to go kick in the door, kick A, and take names. It's not, it's going to be a learning curve, and I think people, at least I do, and in my opinion, I think people just want to hear honesty and where they really stand, and that's the best thing that anyone could do.
I totally agree. And, we were talking off the air about this, that, if you look at the answers the counselors have been giving in the papers, and I've been guilty of this too, everyone's been giving safe, middle of the road answers. And, I don't think that's really doing anyone a service. I think the counselors should be pressed more by the media to really answer the more difficult questions and to show who they are. because, it's a short election campaign, and Revelstoke deserves the councillors that they want, not kind of randomly chosen.
I think it's safe to say that no matter who gets in, you or anyone else will at one point make a decision that a chunk of the town will be affected by in a negative way and others in a positive way. That's just a reality. It'll happen this time. It happened last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and when Tony Coffin was mayor, and Big G, as they call him at Rotary. That's the way it goes. There's going to be decisions, but I think people want to hear at least where your integrity, or not just you, but anyone's integrity, and where they stand and how they feel about things. And that's the best. Like I said, that's the best that you could possibly give and get.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think people want to feel that, if a major decision's been made that's going to, that divides the town, I think people want to know that the councillors were really listening to people and weighing it out, whether it's the right decision for this person or that person. But, if the councillors are working hard, they've done their homework, and they've really listened to people. And at the end of the day, that's what we get paid for, is to make decisions. That's the hard part of the job. Decisions need to be made at a certain point.
So we've been chatting with Michael Brooks Hill. If you want to contact him directly, you can email him at mikebrookshill@gmail.com, or you can give him a call at 200-2042, and you'll hear him tonight at the All Candidates Forum. Thanks, Mike, for coming in.
Thank you, Sean.